Alright, so after all the classic Superman movies, it's now time to put the live action versions of this character to rest with one final film, Revisit. What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Joshua Drake. Welcome to Epictastic Joshua. If you're a returning member or a new member, this is going to be my final revisited, theatrically released Superman film, and this is going to be for my re-review of Man of Steel. I bet you guys know where this is gonna go, honestly. This was directed by Zack Snyder, the man that everybody loves to hate, and I definitely have my issues with him. This was a reboot of Superman, and this was the first of the DC extended universe, which is no longer relevant. This stars Henry Cavill, Amy Adams, Michael Shannon, Kevin Costner, Diane Lane, Lawrence Fishburne, and Russell Crowe. This movie, Clark Kent learns that he is a superpower alien from the planet Krypton and assumes the role of mankind's protector, Superman, making the choice to face General Zod and stop him from destroying humanity. Now, this originally wasn't supposed to happen. At first, we were going to get a sequel to Superman Returns, but after that movie came out and didn't do so hot, and then there was a lot of stuff going on with the actors and with Bryan Singer doing projects like Valkyrie and Jack the Giant Slayer, and the two writers of that movie doing other projects and being a part of the writer's strike in 2007-2008. All that went flushed down the tubes, and then what happened was they ended up having to do this movie because if they didn't start production on a Superman movie by 2011, the Shuster and Saigo estates will be able to sue them for loss of revenue on an unproduced movie. So what happens was, during the production of Dark Knight Rises, Christopher Nolan pitched David Goyer's idea, and Zack Snyder was hired as director at first. And this movie, a lot of marketing, of course, because I remember the marketing campaign for this 2013. I said, oh shit, another Superman movie? I did hear that this movie did get a mixed reception. It made money, but audiences and critics were divided on the film when it comes to action and also the new actor playing Superman, but also what Zack Snyder was trying to do. But this was the 9th highest grossing movie of that year. And I saw this movie in 2014, and when I first saw this movie, I wasn't sure what to think of it. I wasn't sure what to think of this was going to be, but I thought that overall, I watched it, and what I did was, when I gave this movie a watch 2014, I actually watched it twice. I watched it once, and then I watched it again, just to make sure I wanted to give my own thoughts. And I have loved this movie ever since 2014. I've always thought this is an underrated gem as a Superman fan, but I've had many times in many years, even after DCEU, after the Justice League trilogy by Zack Snyder, after Batman vs Superman, to really gather my thoughts on this particular movie. And I will say this about Man of Steel. This is still probably my favorite Superman movie, but I got some issues with it. I got some issues when it comes to this movie. And I'm not gonna sit here and pretend like this is the greatest Superman thing ever. But this and the Christopher Reeve film from 1978 are my two favorites, because they are two totally different tones. And also they are two totally different movies. But I will start off right now and go into the things I don't like, because I think the best way for me to give my full-on thoughts on this movie is to go into what I don't like before I go into what I do like. So it'll be easier for me because I can just go into the pros and cons of this. But as much as I do like Man of Steel, I am a defender of it, but there are quite some issues I do want to be in touch with. even every time I rewatch. Going into the bad things, or the dark side for us of this review, is I feel like while I admire Zack Snyder and David Goyer's vision to take Superman to a different direction and go for something a little more different, a little bit more on the entertaining side of things here, I will say when it comes to this, there are decisions in this writing and decisions in the script that I'm not really the biggest fan of on rewatch, or have not been the biggest fan of since I first saw it. I think one of the issues for me is I do not like the way they portray Jonathan Kent in this movie. In the original Superman, despite his limited screen time, he was more like, you can use your powers when you're ready, but make sure you are human first. And that version of Jonathan Kent was more loving, he was more sympathetic, and he showed some love to Clark Kent. While I like Kevin Costner as an actor, and recent drama aside with him, I just don't really get that much love when it comes to him. There's one moment where he's like, "You are my son," which that is heartfelt, of course, but the way they choose to do this character in here, I just think is not very strong here. I think that's a total mistake on David Goyer's part of the film. Granted, Zack Snyder, he only directed this, but I feel like we could have just said, David, can we just go back in and rechange this? Because I don't like the way they're doing this. I get what he's going for in terms of this Jonathan Kent, but I just don't like the way they take him out. Him with a tornado and Clark is there to watch, and he says, no, don't use your powers. I'm like, that could have meant something if I didn't have so many issues with this version of Jonathan Kent. And the thing that I've always not liked when I'm rewatching this on the live stream, which I do think is a well done scene, but this is not in line with Jonathan Kent. But I can appreciate what they're trying to go for is when they're talking in the truck and how he uses powers to save his kids from the school bus. And Clark's like, what am I supposed to do? Let him die? That is moments of Superman, because Superman, he's not just gonna let people die, but and then he says, maybe. I'm like, no. You can argue about the way he's portrayed here, which in moments with Superman, it can be a little nihilistic and a little bit too un-Superman for my taste. But you know what? As someone who is a fan of this character, I do envy this movie for trying something different still. Just that issue with Jonathan Kent, I really do not like. I do feel like there could have been a lot more moments of light. I feel like the tones here could have been a mix of light and dark, where you have Superman saving people and being himself, but also when it comes to be dark at times, it comes to be dark. So I felt you needed to lighten this up just a little bit more in parts, not make it a full-blown comedy, still make it your own vision, but I do feel like go fix that up in some of the writing, into some of the Superman stuff. Some of the action and some of the fighting is well shot, and there's plentiful of action, but some of it is a little too frantic, and a little bit of it is like a bit of weird shaky cam there, and I could have really use a lot more different ways of showing the action. Even though I give credit to this guy for hamming it up, Michael Shannon, he is having a ball with it. There are just moments where I feel he goes a little bit too over the top, and you could have benefited more from having a lot more seriousness here. And also, I will say there are some moments in terms of a character decision that Superman makes that, while I personally don't have a problem with Superman killing Zod, I feel like there's an alternative way we could have had Zod go out in this. Like, granted, if you can't get him to stop, the least you could do is just headbutt him to sleep. Like, that would have been an easier thing to do. But Superman killing Zod, I really don't have an issue with it because you can see that he just killed the last person of Krypton that he'll ever know because they never established Supergirl here. I think some of the dialogue here is a bit crazy here. I think some of it is like, yeah, you could do this a lot better. You could have wrote this better. That's just the problem you're gonna have with David Goyer in the writing room. So I will say, when it comes to that, I feel like we could have fixed that up just a little bit. It's lighten this up just a little bit more. And some actors here like Russell Crowe and Ayla Zora, they're in here, but I feel like they don't get a whole lot to do. The last issue I'll go into is the structuring of this. That's the one thing I feel like we really could have fixed up. But I appreciate the effort. I appreciate what Zack Snyder was going for. So while I am giving this movie my honest criticisms, and while I feel like Zack Snyder, in parts, he gets the character of Superman when he's flying and such, I feel like somebody else should have taken the script from David Goyer, and really put more of the Superman push into it. I get what he was going for, and I do have to give some credit to where credit is due for taking a chance. Because you're not going to see a lot of movies that actually take a chance with a character that we know. And for better or worse, regardless of if you love the movie or hate it, this movie did introduce a new genre and a new generation's love for an iconic superhero and fighting an audience despite this movie's initial negative reactions. Now, switching for what I don't like, I want to go into the mixed aspects. And I'm mixed on, like I said, the villains here. Faora, and then you also have General Zod here. While I love Michael Shannon. He is great in this movie. He's one of the things you do enjoy watching. Even if I find myself laughing at him at the parts, I'm just like, yeah, tone it down a little more. Play it more serious if I was the director. And Faora, she's a badass too. Quite underrated, but it's just the side of Superman me, and now especially because of the toxic Snyderverse cultist fandom has beat this movie down to people's heads to where I can't appreciate this 100% as I want to appreciate it. And I have to look at the issues, which I've always admit there are issues with this movie. I can at least give them credit for being more of threats this time around and being more of a brute force, even though there are some moments where I'm like, okay. While I do appreciate the tone that this movie is going for, a more human, a more realistic and dark side of things, with some lighthearted elements where Superman, he does smile, because people say Henry doesn't smile. He does smile a few times when he's with Martha or Lois, or when he's Clark Kent, or even when he's like flying. This first scene where he's doing the first flight, which I've always loved that scene, even when I first saw it, because I put myself in his shoes. If I was Superman or a character like that, I'd be pretty excited getting to fly too. I actually think is one of the more important parts there that I feel like we could have had developed. If you just did a blend of the two, like the campy side and also the dark and realistic side, to lighten things up in a few moments, I think more people would be a lot less hateful towards this movie. In terms of the positives of this movie, there's actually quite some here, because you know what? I still fucking love this movie. I'm sorry if you don't agree with me on this movie. I've really tried over the years to see the same thing that people see in this movie. This is a bad Superman movie, one of the worst movies of all time. I just can never get there when it comes to this movie. I can never get there. Because for one, I just don't want to have someone else's opinion be my own opinion. I want to have my own thoughts. So I will say, in terms of the story, I like what Zack Snyder was trying to do. He's trying to go for a different approach with Superman. More of a deconstruction of superheroes. Even though that's not what I think Superman should be, I have to give credit to this for being one of my favorite reboots and one of my favorite superhero films for at least going for the attempt to doing something different. Did it succeed with everyone? Oh, hell no, it didn't. But for me, it works just fine. The movie, despite the color grading at times being the Zack Snyder-esque color scheme, I would say the film is well shot. Zack Snyder, he may not be a writer, but one thing he is known for in his movies, he is a damn good visual director. Especially when it comes from music videos. Like, I still think his best movie for me is Watchmen, especially the director's cut and the ultimate cuts. And I love 300, and I like his version of Justice League and BVS with the issues of those. But I get what he's trying to do here. He wanted to take Superman, his love of the character, and do his own spin on it. I feel like he did it pretty well. Again, like I said, there are some writing issues, which I just talked about in my negatives, but I will say this, I feel like he was doing the best that he can with what is required of him. The way the action scenes in this, with Superman fighting General Zod or Superman, they're pretty badass. Henry Cavill, he's in good shape here. He got in shape to play this character, and you could tell in interviews that he was passionate about Superman. It's just too bad that he has said that the movies after this didn't really fit for what he wanted to do, because he wanted to portray it as more of the Boy Scouts. He did enjoy playing the character of Superman, obviously, but it's just the way he was written, he has criticized. And when he is criticizing the way he's written, then he earns my respect, because not many people will do that and criticize that. He felt like he should have had more say in it. But I feel like for him as Superman, Clark Kent in this solo movie, the only one that he did get, I think he does a good job. He's not Christopher Reeve, but he wasn't trying to be. He wanted to be his own Superman. He gets the action scenes down. He gets some of the dialogue down. There's moments in his performance, which I will admit, he could have just smiled a little bit more or just laughed. But I get what his character is going through. He's going through a moral confliction. Should he be saving people or such? Should he be doing the right thing? And so, I actually like his performance here. I think regardless of how you feel about the movie, good or bad, he is the one thing you can count on. Even if you don't love his version of Superman, at least give him credit for trying. Amy Adams is Lois Lane. This may not be my favorite Lois Lane because of what they do with her in other movies. They don't use her a lot to the best of her advantage, but I think she does a good job here as Lois Lane. She has some decent chemistry with, of course, Henry Cavill, and I liked her spunk. Yes, she's more redheaded, which I'm not really complaining that much because I like my redheads. I love brunettes too, I love blondes, but to tell you the truth, I think redheads may be my favorite type of women. We'll say the rest of the cast, such as Michael Shannon, even though it's a little overbearing, I thought he did fine as Zod. Kevin Costner and Diane Lane as Jonathan and Martha Kent, they do a very good job here, but it's really Diane Lane who shines as Martha Kent. Kevin Costner is as well, but you can tell that even he was disappointed with some decisions with the script. Lawrence Fishburne being the first black actor to play Perry White, I would like his portrayal. Anjay Trial as Faye Orr, I think was very good. A. Lazura as Laura Longvine is good. Connie Nielsen was going to play her, but Zura got casted. But luckily, Connie Nielsen, she did play Queen Hippolyta in the Wonder Woman movies. You also have Russell Crowe as Jor-El, which he's not in it a lot, but I think he does fine here. Christopher Maloney does good as Nathan Hardy. You also have Harry Lennox as Calvin Swanwick or Martian Manhunter, which they don't see. Also have a nice voice cameo by Carla Gugino here. So I would say it's a pretty stacked cast. It's very well shot and well edited. 2 hours and 23 minutes, even though I will say the movie is too long when it goes to the flashbacks. I think we could have trimmed some of the flashbacks down or just put them on in extended cut of the Blu-ray and such. Yeah, I do like the way this movie is shot. The editing here by the late David Brenner is decently edited. Just, of course, like I said, there are some issues with some of it. There's some CGI here that may not always be the best in some parts. The production design and costume design is good enough, even though you could tell the Superman suit is a lot less colorful this time around, but I appreciate what they were trying to do with the suit. The action is where I have to kind of defend this movie a little bit, because you people complain that there's too much destruction in this movie, which most of it is caused by General Zod. When you have an overpowering, evil Kryptonian villain just fighting each other, ramming Superman through walls and shit, people are gonna practically fucking die. So that, I just never really find that to be a criticism. You could criticize this movie for that, but yet you can't criticize your precious Avengers movies. Because guess what? Avengers 1 and 2, people died in Avengers 1 and 2. But the difference here in this is why I feel like, yes, Superman, he could have tried and saved everyone. He has that human thing to him where he can't take on every single problem. He can't take on every single person getting hurt. That could have been a bit fixer-upper there to where Superman, he's able to try and get as many people as you can. Because he does save people. It's just not a lot as what people think out. But that's just a criticism to me. I just think it's a little bit too overbearing. I actually don't mind the Hans Zimmer Superman theme. I like the score here. Now, by default, John Williams' Superman theme is still my personal favorite, but I will say this does hold up pretty well as far as the Superman theme. At least it was his own here. So I definitely will give credit to where credit is due for that. And I actually think you did a very strong job for what is going on here. So for that, I will give credit, and I do have to give it some praise. So congratulations, Man of Steel. You do have another positive. The main question I want to ask myself when it comes to this movie is, do flaws and all, am I entertained by this particular movie? Yes, I am entertained when it comes to parts in this movie. Again, there's a lot of stuff I can give you, but we'll be here for at least an hour and a half if I talk more about this movie, because I still have other things I would like to do outside the Superman review series, and I gotta get all of these edited and done and scheduled to upload by the time the new movie comes out. Do I quite like most of what this movie's trying to do? Yes. It shows a more flawed superhero than what we're used to, which a lot you could, but I still enjoy it. So in conclusion, do I still like Man of Steel? Yes, I do. I do appreciate what the tone is going for. I appreciate what Zack Snyder was trying to do. I did like the performances. I like Henry Cavill's Superman. Granted, he could have done a little bit more in terms of it. And there are some decisions I feel like he and David Goyer should have thought twice about in the case of Zack Snyder. But I overall do enjoy this movie still. I think this is one of the most overhated superhero movies out there. It's one of my favorite superhero movies of the last decade. And as a Superman fan, while I don't think this is the definitive Superman, for me, I can appreciate the Superman movie for doing what it set out to do. And whether people like it or hate it, to do something different. You can't complain when one previous movie, like Superman Returns, was stuck in the Christopher Reeve era and complain that they didn't do enough different when you got something different here. If it doesn't work for you, that's fine. But I still quite enjoy Man of Steel. And I'm gonna give it an Epictastic. After the success of Man of Steel, we would then get Henry Cavill for 2 more films with Batman vs. Superman: Dawn of Justice and Zack Snyder's Justice League or Justice League. Now, I'll say this when it comes to Zack, the Batman vs. Superman. For as many issues as I still have with Batman vs. Superman with the Ultimate Cut with Jesse Eisenberg, and there are moments where it's a little too dark with its intense themes, and also there's some moments here where I feel like, yeah, this could have been written a lot better, or it's too much they're trying to set up in one movie. I'm one of those people who still defend Batman vs. Superman ever since the 2016 release. The theatrical version I liked when I first saw it, but now that I've seen the extended cut, I don't like the theatrical version anymore because it feels highly studio interfered. And while the Ultimate Cut still has the same amount of problems, I do enjoy the Ultimate Edition of BVS for what it is. It was nice to see Batman and Superman together. Wonder Woman was pretty cool. I definitely like what they were trying to do thematically with the story. Just some of it didn't really come through for me, and I really hated Lex Luthor Jr. as Superman. So, for all the issues of that one, I still very much like Batman vs. Superman. And as far as the 2 versions of Justice League, when it comes to the theatrical cut released in 2017 that was studio meddled and just put together differently by Joss Whedon and Warner Brothers, I enjoyed that version of the movie when it came out. I gave it a positive review, but if I was to review it now, I would say, yeah, it's not very good. But it is a guilty pleasure that I can enjoy, and it is a fascinating disaster. The reshoots are noticeable, the effects are not good. There's obviously edits to where the movie has been edited and chopped up. Ultimately, that is just a fascinating guilty pleasure I would love to go back and do a revisit or a live stream commentary of. But the Snyder Cut, I actually think is great. It does conclude the little Justice League trilogy nicely, even though I feel you could have done better by giving each of these characters their own individual movie first before we got to that point. But not everything can be Marvel. But this Ultimate Cut of Justice League fixes a lot of issues I had with the 2017 film. And while I don't think it's one of the greatest superhero movies ever, I do really love this version of it. The characters get to be fleshed out more. The villain is better. I like the story. Even though I still have issues with the aspect ratio, and it's just 4 hours and some odd minutes too long because some of the slow motion, and you didn't need an epilogue, and Amber Heard as Mera could have really been cut out from this movie. I did enjoy that cut of Justice League. Would I have liked to have seen Henry Cavill get a solo Superman trilogy? Yes, but sometimes shit happens. But at least he was happy to play the character despite the issues he had with his interpretation. That's going to conclude the Superman Revisited side of reviews, but we're not done just yet because we got one final review in the Superman Road to 2025 Superman project, and then I can be hyped. In the next coming weeks, you will get a review of Superman 2025. Once I go see it and get it, do a spoiler review, a spoiler discussion with some friends. But I did enjoy having this. What did you guys think of Man of Steel in the comment section down below? Please be civil to each other in the comments. Whether you love this movie or hate it, please. I need all y'all just to be civilized people and stop acting like a bunch of immature brats over a freaking movie. Put all your comments in the description box down below. Be sure to like the video, comment, share the video down below. Please hit the subscribe button and notification bell to get notified when videos are up. If you'd like sending money to my Cash App or Chime, those are in the description box as well as my Amazon wish list there if you'd like to send me anything. It could be a movie or a TV show, pretty much anything there. Also, if you're listening to this on Apple Podcasts or Spotify Podcasts and the Epictastic Live podcast, because this will be audio, be sure to give it a like, be sure to share it, and be sure to give it a 5-star rating review. This is Joshua Drake from Epictastic Joshua. As always, stay Epictastic, join the Epictasticness, and you guys keep it cool as always. Yeah, I'll see you guys in the final Superman revisit review. Well, that's going to do it for the video that you just watched. If you want to see more, my channel icon is up here. If you want to see more content from me, all my social medias are right here in this end card. I will also leave a playlist and a video here for you to see what the channel is about. As always, acknowledge me, stay Epictastic, join the Epictasticness, and you guys keep it cool.